Okay, so everyone's talking about the 2024 election, right? And like, who's going to win those really important working class votes? It
Absolutely.
seems like kind of straightforward when we think about unions, you know,
Hmm.
like who they usually support.
Right.
But
Yeah.
get ready to be surprised because today's deep dive is going to uncover some seriously interesting stuff about how union support is playing out in this election.
Yeah, it's actually pretty fascinating how both candidates are approaching unions this time around, especially with like that whole thing with the dock workers
Oh,
recently.
totally. That
Okay.
totally caught my attention too. The timing of Kamala Harris visiting Flint, Michigan, right after those U.S. dock workers suspended their strike. Like Flint's known for its union history. Yeah. So what do you think the strategy is behind that timing?
Well, I think it's all about sending a message, you know? Those dock workers were right on the edge of this huge strike that could have really messed things up for the country.
Yeah.
And even though they agreed on some wage increases, there are still some other pretty big issues that haven't been worked out. So Karai is showing up right then, praising the progress and talking about how important collective bargaining is. It's definitely strategic, especially in a place like Flint that's had its own share of economic troubles, for
Right.
sure.
And then on the flip side, you've got Trump holding these rallies. Even one in Michigan where he basically said that Republicans are like the party of the American worker, which seems kind of strange considering like the history there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a really bold statement.
Yeah.
And it shows how much things are changing in politics. Unions have always tended to lean Democrat, but it's getting blurry now. Like even looking at the firefighters and the Teamsters, these are big, powerful unions that usually side with the Democrats. And this time they haven't endorsed Harris.
Wow. So it seems like that strong connection between unions and the Democrats is like cracking a bit. Is that what they meant in the article about like broader shifts happening in American politics?
Yeah, exactly. You've got Democrats who are gaining more support from white collar professionals, like people in tech academics, even some finance people. And then you've got Republicans who are trying really hard to appeal to blue collar voters, the ones who maybe don't have college degrees and are feeling left behind by the Democrats.
So it's not just about unions then. It's about how the whole system, the whole like who votes for who thing is changing.
Yeah.
So then like what's going to happen because of this?
It is a huge change. And when you look at the numbers, it becomes super clear. The article mentioned that 56% of union households voted for Biden in 2020, which makes sense. But then a whole 62% of white voters without degrees voted for Trump. That's a really big difference.
62%. Wow.
Yeah.
That just shows how different things are now. It's not like how it used to be.
Exactly. And here's the really interesting part. The labor movement itself is trying to figure out what to do with all these changes and like who people are and what they believe. It's not just one big group anymore.
Right.
It's complicated now.
So we're seeing this like political chess match. Right. Both sides trying to get the support of working class voters. But it seems like that group is becoming more and more divided. But okay, let's bring it back to like what this all means for the person listening. Like, why should they care about which way unions are leaning in this election? How does it affect their everyday life?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? It's easy to just think about this stuff as like political games that have nothing to do with us. But actually, union issues impact all of us, even if we're not in a union ourselves.
Okay, I'm listening.
I would
Tell me more.
Remember when we were talking about those dock worker negotiations? Just imagine if that strike had actually happened. What would have gone down? Supply chains would have been messed up, stuff wouldn't be getting where it needs to go. And then suddenly everything's more expensive or you can't even find it in the stores anymore. That's a real consequence that affects every single person.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember all those supply chain problems from a while back.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go through that again.
Yeah.
Empty shelves, crazy prices. No, thank you.
Exactly. And it goes even further than that, too. A lot of times when unions are negotiating, it sets the standard for like what kind of pay or working conditions or benefits people can expect in a whole industry. So even if you're not in a union, what they're able to get can influence your own job, whether it's like how much money you can ask for, how safe your workplace is, or even just the overall vibe of the company.
So it's all connected then. Like we're all in this together.
100%. And this idea of being connected, it's even more important when you think about what the candidates are saying. It's not just about which unions endorse them. It's about the actual words they use to talk about labor issues and what those words tell us about what they really care about.
What do you mean? Like what kind of language should we be paying attention to?
Think about how they frame the issues. Are they saying they want to protect worker rights or make sure people are getting paid fairly and that their workplaces are safe? Or are they talking about it like some kind of fight between special interests and job creators? The way they talk about these things tells you a lot about what they believe about the economy and what they think the role of workers should be in society.
So it's like this whole conversation about labor unions is changing in this election.
Mm.
It's not so much about like those old labels anymore, like who's on which side. It's more complicated than that, which I think actually makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what? This brings us back to you, the listener. As you're paying attention to this election and like trying to make sense of everything, don't just focus on who's endorsing who.
Right. We got to dig a little deeper. It's about more than just picking a side.
Exactly. Really pay attention to how each candidate actually talks about work and wages and the stuff that everyday working people deal with, whether they're in a union or not. Like, what are their ideas? What are they proposing to do about these issues? Are they talking about things like collective bargaining rights? Or are they more focused on individual opportunities?
It's like trying to figure out what their big picture vision is for the American workforce.
Yes, exactly. Like, what kind of economy are they trying to create? One that just benefits corporations, or one where all workers are treated fairly and with respect? These are questions that are way bigger than just this one election.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening. Honestly, it's given me a lot to think about as we get closer to the election.
That's what we're here for. Remember, knowledge is power, especially these days.
So true. Well, huge thanks to you for walking us through all of this.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. As always, stay curious and keep asking those important questions. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that matters.